Hi everyone, it's Nishti here with a workshop on what is the 1-2-3 healthy eating approach. Now, I have done a slight introduction, very tiny introduction on what is the 1-2-3 healthy eating approach in week number 1. So if you haven't watched that, I would strongly recommend that you do that just to give you an overview. And obviously you also here because you've done all the awareness work, because we cannot move forward if we are not aware. So let's get started on the 1-2-3. So I meet a lot of people who are really struggling with their weight and body image. And it's such a shame because really we are born into this world with perfect health. And then things happen, as you've learned, social, cultural conditioning, psychological issues happen. And sometimes these can lead to excess weight gain. Now, although we've got tremendous amount of health messages out there, we still see a rise in obesity, type 2 diabetes. So obviously something isn't right. And also the incidences in stroke have risen dramatically over the years. I specialize myself in diabetes. And we see a lot of children, even children, develop type 2 diabetes because they are overweight. So obviously something isn't right out there. And not to mention all the emotional eaters. Now, emotional eating, as you may be aware of already, is not about food. It's about internal unresolved pain, which obviously you must have spoken to me about, otherwise you wouldn't be on this course. And we reach for food because we're in so much pain and we think food can soothe us. But again, this is all conditioning. So food has become an addiction, I believe, in today's society. Most of us have no clue how to eat. Children are gaining weight. Women who are pregnant develop something called gestational diabetes, which is another of my expert areas and interest areas. And it's just, everyone's just struggling with food, which really food is there to nourish us. Food is the fuel we need, but it has become a huge problem in today's world. So I come from the NHS, where obviously, I see a lot of sick people. I specialize in pediatrics, and I've seen a lot of children, not just with diabetes, but also lots of other conditions, such as even cancer, arthritis. I see adults with cancer and arthritis. And obviously, with food, one day I just had to stop and ask myself, why are we not becoming healthier when we have so many healthy choices and unhealthy choices, and we've got so much information available, we've got everything to hand? Why are we not getting healthier? And also, does fat really make us fat? This was the question. I got together with some of my colleagues, and it took us 4 months to look into the evidence around this. And to our surprise, fat actually doesn't make you fat. And I will explain to you in this workshop what I mean. Now, these are the national guidelines that we tell people to follow for a healthy diet. Lots of carbohydrates, lots of vegetables, a bit of dairy, some protein, and on the left side you can see we recommend not to eat many foods high in sugar and fat. The problem is, though, with this, it's targeted at the whole population, not the individual. And also, it doesn't suit everyone because we are all different. We all have different metabolic types, as I call them. So, for instance, if I was to eat like this, I would gain a lot of weight. This diet, high in carbohydrates, just does not suit me. Which diet do we follow? Oh, goodness me. People go on to various diets: vegan, sugar-free, organic, GMO-free, vegetarian, paleo, you name it. We all follow each other, but we don't follow our own instincts because we haven't been taught how to. Now, the 1-2-3 is not a diet. Let me just make that very clear. And it's definitely not there to confuse you. It is there to empower you, because I'm sure you tried various diets so far with little or no success. So Nishti's choice has been created out of a need, not just a need for people struggling with weights, but also for children, because that's my specialist area. But I realized very early on that for me to enable to help children, I need to be able to help the adult first. So, you watching this as the adult, if I can empower you towards better nutrition, then you will be able to empower your offspring or the people you are in contact with, whether you work with children or not. We need to set an example as adults so we can create a healthier future. So a little bit about me. My name is Nishti, and I'm a refugee from the Middle East. I'm very fortunate to have grown up in beautiful Scandinavia. This is Copenhagen. But I left very early on. I was 19 because I love adventure. So I went traveling around the world, and I got to the United Kingdom, where I had to stop because I needed to work and earn some money for all the money I'd spent on traveling. And I knew very early on in my life that I wanted to work in health and nutrition. And it was in 2007, I think, I went for an open day at the University of Surrey, which is the top-rated university for dietetics, nutrition and dietetics. And I was very lucky to get accepted. And in all honesty, I love my job. I don't want to call it a job. I love being a dietitian so much that I'm a dietitian 24/7, because it's not a job, it's a hobby. I'm registered with the HCPC, the Danish Health Authority, BDA, the Association of UK Dietitians, and also freelance dietitians. I've won lots of awards, which is obviously great. So Allergy Blog Award, because I'm very, very passionate about IBS, food intolerances and allergies, not just in children, but also in adults. And I've also won an award with the Asian Business Award. And this is me and my mentor, Dr. Shefali, who is Oprah's favorite clinical psychologist. And she has taught me so much. I'm doing courses with her at the moment. She has taught me so much, which has enabled me to help people on a more deep-seated level. So that's me and her there in Los Angeles last year, 2017 that was. I've worked across the world, including the developing world, and with children on wards and nutrition rehabilitation homes, and just there to teach nutrition and to also understand what happens around the world, because really it just helps to open your mind, and it's again just helped me to become a better dietitian, because that's what I strive for. I strive to become the best version of myself. So please note, now we have to do this, don't we? Disclaimer, please note that this information neither is medical advice, nor is it meant to replace the advice of your doctor or your dietitian. And I assume no liability for the use or misuse of this information. So back to the 1, 2, 3 healthy eating approach. Now, the 1, 2, 3 healthy eating approach is something I've developed, and I just want to show you what people say about this tool. It is so simple, and it has worked so well, which is why I developed it actually whilst working with patients in the NHS, because I thought, I can't do this anymore. No one knows what they're doing, so let's make it simple. So that's how it all started. And this picture just says everything. This lady, I actually work with her daughter, who has a very rare condition. And through the 1, 2, 3, we managed to get her more active. So she was more reliant on her wheelchair before the 1, 2, 3. And after the 1, 2, 3, she became more independent. But that's her daughter. I haven't shown any photos of her. This is the mom. So because the 1, 2, 3 is a family approach, it just shows, again, fun, easy, family-centered approach that you can all use. And Jodie herself lost a lot of weight under 1, 2, 3. And this is a client of mine who had diabetes in pregnancy, and she was terrified because, you know, she was slim, tall, healthy, and she didn't understand why she developed diabetes. But she did so because her foods weren't combined in the correct order, and I will explain what that means. Now, she went 1, 2, 3. I taught her how to eat 1, 2, 3 for the vegetarian diet, and her blood sugar level stabilized, and she didn't need medication. And that's the work I used to do in the NHS. I was very passionate about not getting women on medication when they were pregnant. So that's just an example there of how the 1, 2, 3 can even help avoid the use of medication. And here is another testimony from Paige, who has done extremely well. She's got her wedding coming up soon, and she continues to lose weight. And it's as simple as 1, 2, 3. She is probably one of my most passionate 1, 2, 3 followers. She tells everyone she meets, even her personal trainers, who always convince her to try this diet and that diet. And she's like, nope, I am 1, 2, 3. And it works. And she's shown fantastic results. And finally, Karen, who also is another has a great testimony here on the 1, 2, 3. It's been refreshing for her because it focuses on balance rather than restriction. And remember, if we try and restrict something and we are focusing on that, whatever we focus on expands. So that's why diets don't work. So I developed the 1, 2, 3 whilst working with patients in the NHS. It is a tool I've developed. So it's not called the 1, 2, 3 at the hospital I used to work at, of course not. So just to show you there. And, you know, it's not just there to help you lose weight. It also helps to maintain weight, because that's what I use it for, really. Before a holiday, I may use it to just, cut off a few extra inches. It stabilizes blood sugars. So if you have diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2 or gestational diabetes, it can help you to stabilize your blood sugars, but you would need, 1-to-1 on that, because obviously that's a medical condition there. And also you avoid excessive snacking by going 1, 2, 3. You achieve optimal nutrition because we're making sure you're getting your various food groups in the correct order, depending on your metabolic type. It's fun, easy, and practical, and is no calorie counting. I personally don't believe in calorie counting, and I've written a fantastic blog on why we shouldn't be calorie counting, which you can find on www.nishi'schoice.com. And most importantly, it's a family approach to healthy eating. So it's not a diet. It's all about combining food groups in the correct proportions depending on your individual needs, so you can enjoy eating, because that's really what we should be doing, not stressing over food. So where we must start is right here. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is the umbrella term for all foods that contain carbohydrates, which really are sugars. Now, sugars or carbohydrates are broken down into sugar. So this is where we need to start. So where are carbohydrates found? If they are the only food, this is the only food group that's broken down into glucose, which is a fancy term for sugar. That's why really on my logo here, but just remember it's all individualized. The 1, 2, 3 is very individualized. On the logo, I've put it down as the smallest portion on your plate. Now with each meal, if you can make sure your carbohydrate section is the smallest, unless you're a carbohydrate type, which again, I don't know till you've worked with me, then you would need more carbohydrates. But for most of us, we need less than we think. So which foods contain carbs? I want you to just have a go and think about that for a moment. So here we are. The foods that contain carbohydrates would be your fruit, your pasta, your cereal, your milk, and obviously the full sugar Coke, and your bread, and obviously chocolate. What doesn't contain carbohydrate would be your protein, so eggs, fish, butter, cheese, and steak, and the Pepsi Max. So the foods that are highlighted in beige, they are broken down into sugar, and the rest are not broken down into sugar. So your cheese, for instance, when you eat that, it's not metabolized into sugar. Now, let's talk a little bit about glucose and insulin. So I specialize in diabetes, and really working in diabetes opened my mind to a lot of things, including why we shouldn't be calorie counting. And the reason for that is because if carbohydrates is the only food group that's broken down into sugar, so there you can see a glucose molecule or a sugar molecule. When you eat carbs, it's released into sugar in your body, okay? And insulin, which is the hormone released from your pancreas, takes that sugar into your cells so you can use it for energy. So insulin is what we in the medical world call, it's an anabolic hormone. Anabolic. It builds you up. So the more glucose you have, the more insulin you have, and the more you get build up. So glucose, insulin, build up. Glucose, insulin, build up. Now insulin is vital, so is glucose. But can you see that if your diet is very high in carbohydrates and you are struggling with your weight, you're not gaining weight, you're gaining excessive weight, then you may need to think about this, because you probably are just encouraging too much insulin release. So what happens when you eat excessive carbs? Well, not only is your insulin on the rise, which causes fat storage really, because all the glucose is being stored as fat. And if you're sat down and not moving as much, that's when things may go wrong and you start piling on the weight, and you may even be at high risk of developing type 2 diabetes. You can easily get into this vicious cycle, I call it, of eating a lot of carbs, releasing a lot of insulin, which your body does automatically. And unfortunately, the more insulin you release, the more hungry you get. So you eat excessive carbs, then you have a lot of insulin. And so you know that feeling when you've had a big meal and you've had pudding and then you could actually eat again? Well, that's because you're just in this vicious cycle of eating and eating and eating. Insulin is on the high, and insulin will also give you that feeling of being hungry. So I meet a lot of people who are in the vicious cycle, the insulin vicious cycle, I call it. And it's about breaking free from this. And that's easy. You just have to go 1, 2, 3. So what's the difference? Now, many people think that swapping to brown rice is better than white rice. And yeah, that's partially correct. Obviously, it's got more nutrients in, it's low GI, so it's slow release sugar compared to white rice, which is fast release sugar. But it's still the same amount of carbs. So I see people who eat more bread because it's wholemeal, but I say to them, it's still the same amount of carbs. This is very important that you take this on board, because you know, it's not just good enough just to change to the whole grain options. It's all about, 1, what is your metabolic type? And 2, how are you combining your food groups? The quality of carbs matters so much. I'm an advocate for whole grain. Black rice I eat myself, whole grain pasta, quinoa, buckwheat, new potatoes. It's all about the quality. And I've done a video on setting your carbohydrate standards high on my YouTube channel, Nishi's Choice on YouTube, that you can watch. And also I just want to talk about non-starchy carbohydrates. Now these vegetables I've listed here contain some carbs. But they're very healthy carbs, obviously, because they're coming from your vegetables. And for the type that I am, metabolic type that I am, if I consume more of these, or when I consume more of these, I feel amazing. It suits my metabolic type. So, for example, the other day, I had salmon with a large corn on the cob and lots of vegetables. 1, 2, 3. Carbs, protein, veg. So if I had rice with it, it would still be 1, 2, 3. But that day I chose to get my carbs from the sweet corn instead of rice. And I felt incredible. But again, that's my metabolic type. You may be different. Now let's talk about protein. Now, protein, as you can see, is so one is carbs, two is protein, and protein it constitutes life. The enzymes in your body needs protein to work. They're made of protein, basically. Antibodies are made of protein, hormones, hair and nails, skin, hemoglobin, which is responsible for carrying oxygen around the blood or around the body. So protein is essential. And you know what? Most of us are not getting enough protein, especially us women. Now, what I want you to imagine now is all these blocks here, because really protein are made of building blocks called amino acids. Now, if you close your eyes and you imagine that I placed a lot of boxes on top of you, would you be able to stand up? No, because they're very heavy, by the way. They're very heavy boxes. That's exactly what protein does to you. In your body, when you consume protein, it grounds you, it keeps you full. Yet many people don't eat enough protein, and then they question why they're always hungry. Perhaps it's because you're not eating enough protein. Protein is blocks that you eat, essentially. If you can visualize that, you'll understand what I'm trying to say here. So if you're not having protein with a meal, that's why you're not feeling grounded, and that's why you're feeling hungry. So what is protein and where do we get it from? Well, meat, fish, poultry, you may be aware of that already. So I've listed them all here. The ones at the top that are listed in green are completely free from carbohydrates. Buckwheat, wheat germ, yogurt, and quinoa have a bit of carbs, and lentils, peas, and baked beans. Although they're a source of of protein, they are essentially carbohydrates. So if you're having beans on toast and you're struggling with your weight, then I would say that's not a balanced meal, because beans on toast is essentially carbs on carbs. So you're having a sugar meal. And yes, it's low in calories, but the food group, because it's only carbs, remember what I said, the only thing really you need to take away today, if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's carbs broken down into sugar. And that's it. So if you know what your carbs are and what your protein is, then you've got an advantage. That's why I'm an advocate for empowering you and educating you. Because what I'm doing here with you now is actually what we do with our diabetic population. This is what we teach people with type 1 diabetes. This is not what we teach the ordinary standard person that wants to lose weight. But that's what I think that's where we've gone wrong. And that's why I'm here now to give you a different spin on health and nutrition. So how about vegetables? Now, vegetables make up the largest portion on the plate. And that's because vegetables, you don't have to count no calories from vegetables, because vegetables are not broken down into sugar. Protein is not broken down into sugar, okay? It's only carbs. So vegetables, obviously, is a source of fiber that will keep you fuller for longer, give you essential vitamins, minerals. So of course, it needs to be part of our diet. And if you don't like vegetables and you're struggling with your weight and you're not losing weight, well, then it will be more difficult, because if you're not having vegetables with your meal, what do you think you're going to have more of? Or if you're not having enough protein with your meal, what do you think you're going to have more of? Carbs. So how about fruit? I'm just going to drink some water. Okay, so how about fruit? People lots of people eat a lot of fruit because they think it will help them to lose weight. But if your metabolic type is like mine, then you won't lose no weight by eating a lot of fruit. And that's because fruit is broken down into sugar. So fruit is great for you. Yeah, of course it is. It's a miracle that we've got all these beautiful, vibrant colors, but it is broken down into sugar. And depending on who you are and what your metabolic type is, most people don't actually benefit from eating a lot of fruit, but more vegetables, because vegetables are not broken down into sugar. So personally, I have 2 portions of fruit a day. So 1 portion is a handful, and I don't eat more than that. And I try to go for some low sugar fruits, like all your berries. Your berries are low sugar. So strawberry, blueberry, raspberries, they are very low in sugar. So those are the ones I choose. Grapes and bananas are high in sugar. I'm not saying you can't have them, but it's just something to be conscious of. And how about fat? Oh my goodness me, fat. I always say, and if you haven't read my blog on www.nishischoice.com on why the fear of fat has made us fat, I would strongly encourage you to, because most of us are actually not getting enough fat. You are probably fat deficient. Are you getting 70 grams of fat per day? Look at this table and you decide. I'm sure you're not. I didn't until I went crazy on research and started looking into it myself. And look at these beautiful foods here. Fantastic high calorie foods, but because they're high in fat, they're high in calorie, but fat is not broken down into sugar. So don't worry, you're not going to gain weight. You're going to gain weight if you don't eat enough fat, because what do you think you're going to eat more of if you're not eating enough fat? You got that right. You're going to be eating more carbs. You're going to feel tired, sluggish. So you'll be eating more biscuits as a consequence, right? So if you're not getting enough fat, play around with it. Have a look at your diet. How much fat are you getting? And if you're not getting enough, try and up the quantity and obviously the quality. It's all about quality, and see how you feel. I promise you, it will make a tremendous difference. And finally, I really want to touch upon this, and that's about where we come from in the world. I strongly recommend that we don't forget our roots, because we are genetically programmed to require the foods and nutrients our ancestors depended on to survive. This is what I really believe in. So hereditary plays a major role in dietary needs. And I've seen that for myself. I'm from the Middle East, and I function a lot better on a high protein, high fat diet like we do in the Middle East, and lots of vegetables for breakfast. Turkish style breakfast. Has anyone ever had that? So olives, cucumber, tomatoes, eggs, yogurt, cheese. It's just fantastic, and it's proper 1, 2, 3, because we're mixing all the food groups. And I just know my body loves that sort of diet. So I want you to think about that. Where you're from in the world, what did your ancestors rely on? Even in terms of food intolerances and food allergies, I always say to my clients from other ethnic background, particularly, the African and Afro-Caribbean community, they all suffer greatly with dairy. And that's because if you think about it, you don't see children in Africa or the Caribbean have a cheese sandwich and yogurt. No, they don't eat them things. They have a lot of non-wheat carbohydrates, and they don't really eat cheese and yogurts. And then they come here and they have Weetabix and cheese sandwiches, and that's where things go wrong. So please have a look at your roots and pay attention, because it may just change the way you eat. So let's do a little recap. Carbohydrates is the 1, protein is the 2, vegetables is the 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, I believe, and not just my beliefs, but it's scientifically proven, that when you combine your food groups, you give your body what's called a low GI meal, low glycemic index meal. The energy is broken down slowly, which makes you fuller for longer, and which doesn't make you feel tired after the meal. So what I say to people, I've made this word up myself, so let me explain. Let's give your body some food exercise, meaning if you combine your food groups and you don't just have baked beans on toast, which is essentially mostly carbs, then you if you mix your food groups, then you're giving your body some exercise to do. So beans on toast is one machine at the gym. So it could be the you know, the leg lunges machine. But if you're combining your meal, so let's say you're having some toast with a few baked beans, and then you have a nice big salad, and then you have some tuna or, some other type of protein, cheese, then you're combining your food groups. So you've now used 3 to 4 machines at the gym. And which one do you think your body will prefer? 1 machine or 4 machines? 4, of course. So the same principle applies to what we put into our body. The more effort you put into a meal, the better it is for your body. So when you pour out that cereal into a bowl, does that take a lot of effort? No, it's a 2-minute job. And that's how long it takes for your body to really break that down. It takes 2 minutes, and that's why you feel hungry 10 minutes later. So give your body some food aside. Make yourself a wholesome 1, 2, 3 breakfast. Poached eggs on some toast with some tomatoes, or my favorite is avocado, and I love sausages on toast. Sometimes I don't even have carbs, because you don't always have to have carbs. So this morning I had eggs and avocado, and that was it. So always give your body food aside. Combine your food groups. It's going to love you for it. So how does it work in practice? Let me show you some examples. So this is a standard breakfast, isn't it? Toast and butter. And everyone's always fearful of the amount of butter they use, and I always say, don't be scared of the butter. Let me see what you're combining your meals with. So here, toast and butter is just one food group. So there's definitely no food aside involved there. Whereas on the right, you've got eggs and tomato and whole grain bread. That is a proper 1, 2, 3. Carbs, protein, veg. And there you've given your body some food aside. Or how about Weetabix and milk? People think that that's a healthy breakfast, and I don't believe it is. Why? Because it's very, very quickly absorbed into your body, and that's why you feel hungry very quickly. I don't believe it's a mindful way of eating, and that's really, I'm not just saying that. I'm diabetic trained, I specialize in diabetes. I see what it does to the blood sugars of our patients, and blood sugars rise dramatically after eating breakfast, such as cereal. And that's because it's just one food group. So your blood sugar rises and then it drops. Insulin can't keep up with it. And that's why most people feel tired 10 a.m. and they want a biscuit. So the way to make that more wholesome and 1, 2, 3 would be to include some other food groups. So on the right, you can see there's a bowl of muesli with Greek yogurt and berries. Berries are low carbohydrates. Greek yogurt is high in protein, and muesli has all the nuts in there, which also makes it high protein. 1, 2, 3. Or how about lunch? So we've got a low calorie lunch on the top left-hand side. And, where is the protein? There's hardly no protein in there. If you look at that, what's the largest food group? Bread, fruit. It's basically a carbohydrate-rich meal. So all that is broken down into sugar. And if you're sat down at work and not moving much, you will be gaining that and putting that glucose into your cells, and it will be stored as fat. Whereas on the right, same thing really. You're having 2 slices of bread, but look at the amount of veg and protein in there. Beautiful 1, 2, 3 example. Carbs, protein, veg. Or how about the jacket potato with beans? So I said that baked beans, it's mainly sugar. So jacket potato and beans is a sugar meal. But you could make that 1, 2, 3 by having a jacket with mayo, mayo, tuna mayo, and a large salad. Don't be scared of the mayo. It's not the fat that makes you fat. It's the excessive carbohydrates you eat. Or how about dinner? I'm just going to have some more water. So dinner. So most of us have garlic bread with our lasagna, which tastes amazing, but that's carbs with carbs. And I always say, don't mix your carbs and carbs. Don't have pasta with garlic bread. Don't have potato and bread. And you know, I see people combine food groups in the most random ways, and you don't want to eat sugar with sugar. So you choose one source of carbohydrate. So here is the lasagna. We've packed it with more protein and lots of vegetables, and included a side salad. 1, 2, 3. Or if you're out there, if you're eating an Asian meal, rice and dal, you know, for my Asian clients, they always believe that's a healthy meal. But lentils is a source of carbohydrate, and obviously so is rice. So rice and dal is essentially sugar with sugar. So blood sugar levels go high, and insulin has to work hard, and it is stored as fat if you're not using that energy. But we could make it 1, 2, 3 by cooking some more. So here's some paneer, which is Indian cheese, and then some okra, which is lady fingers. So it's like a vegetable curry. And again, there is the rice and there is the dal, but it's been combined with other food groups, which makes it 1, 2, 3, and which makes, we are basically giving your body food exercise. So let me just make one thing very clear. We haven't come to this step randomly. In this program, we focused first on awareness, because if you don't know why you're eating and when you're eating, and if you haven't looked into all the conditioning and rules around food, then there's no point in educating you on nutrition. One must first be aware of why we do what we do. And as you know, I'm an advocate for mindful eating. You know, I class myself as a conscious dietitian. I believe we must listen to our body. So you don't need carbs with every meal. You don't need to eat all the time. You don't need to do anything you don't want to do. You need to listen to your own body. And I will help you with that. I've come to a point where I know if my body wants cucumber or lettuce, or if it wants red pepper or green pepper. My body talks to me, and so does yours. You just haven't been asking it, and you haven't been listening to it, because you've been listening to everyone else's rules and regulations, but not to your own body. And that's what I hope that you will take away from today. You will think about 1, 2, 3, but most importantly, I want you to think about the awareness. So be aware of why you do what you do, listen to your intuition, and don't compare yourself to anyone else. You need to follow your individual needs for your body. Your metabolic type is different to the next person's metabolic type. So 1, 2, 3 is not just carb, protein, veg, it's also awareness, intuition, and the individual. So no comparison. And health is an inside job. Remember that. So please, this blog will also help you. Is how to be a mindful eater. You can find it on my website. And I talk about the 3 steps: awareness, intuition, and no comparison. And I've also written, obviously, what is the 1, 2, 3 and why the fear of fat has made us fat. So please refer to those blogs, as it all goes hand in hand. I don't just believe that you can eat 1, 2, 3 and live a healthy life. No, we need to look at health holistically. So that was it for me today. I look forward to any questions. All the best. Lots of love.